looking at training.gov, what used to be the student assessment guides that over time have morphed into the documents they are now, still bearing many of the resemblance. However, the key words have changed a little bit, trigger words if you like. Let's just go back one here. That's it. So we're going to look at the first, we're going to search the document for the word knowledge. Right, so it's a licensing, not really worried about that. Required skills and knowledge. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4 instances of describe the essential skills and knowledge at their level. Okay, the evidence shall show that knowledge has been acquired. Now, where would they get that knowledge? The knowledge and skills shall be contextualised to current industry standards. Again, where would you get that knowledge? It's only reasonable to assume that some of that knowledge is going to be acquired in the workplace, and some of that knowledge is going to be acquired at TAFE or an RTO. Now, given that this unit has, in this particular case, for Fix and Secure, which is only a small unit, it has 4 topics, but it's got a number of subtopics here. And not every apprentice is actually going to get the opportunity to use this on a frequent basis. They may use some of them. This unit itself highlights diversity a little bit outside of the scope of some workplaces, less so than other subjects like DC motors or perhaps automation, which would be covered, relays and control devices, which is outside of the scope of many companies that perhaps would just do light and power. Aside, if we gain this knowledge in the workplace, then the rest of the scope that is not dealt with in the workplace needs to come from the registered training organisation. That's true with this unit. Anything that's not been picked up at work must be gained somewhere else, and it's only reasonable to assume that that knowledge would be picked up at the RTO, the TAFE. And the teacher, the instructor, would have the utility to be able to contextualise that knowledge and skills for a broad range of subtopics, such as these ones here. And outside of this unit, in units like, as I mentioned before, DC motors, which is not under the purview of many companies out there, it's more specialist, or controls, relays, etc. The TAFE would train, the TAFE would teach, the TAFE imparts knowledge. That is a reasonable thought. There's required skills and knowledge. Again, the teacher has the utility to be able to contextualise it, demonstrate an understanding of essential knowledge. Now, the word appears 13 times, but in the context of student subject matter to the student, it isn't every one of those times, 13 instances, okay, and there's acknowledgement, knowledge, etc. So there's 3 that aren't subject matter to be imparted to the student. All right, so that's the word knowledge for E105, but E105 has been, I'll just need to move this, has been superseded, there we see, by another unit, CEDA equivalent unit is CD20. Now we go to CD20, this time I put the word knowledge in, and there's 6 instances, and again, not every one of these is going to relate to subject matter of knowledge which is to be imparted to the cohort of students. Right, however, it says here, evidence required. Knowledge evidence. Let's just go back to this one here. Changed. The word knowledge here is associated with the application of skills and knowledge described in this unit. That's for licensing. The word knowledge here is required knowledge. Essential skills. Essential knowledge. Here, it's the evidence of that knowledge. Well, of course, they can't pass an assessment unless they have knowledge. So let's just click through this. Acknowledge, acknowledge, acknowledge. This unit involves skills and knowledge required to fix and secure. And that's what they're going to be assessed on. The evidence shall show that knowledge has been acquired. Where was that acquired again? At TAFE. This intimates that knowledge must be imparted to the student, skills must be imparted by the student, If not in the workplace, then at TAFE. This is not acquired, this is required. And the instances of knowledge, evidence required, not the imparting of the knowledge. It's the evidence of the knowledge, but not the imparting of the knowledge. Instruction. Let's type in the word instruction. Installed instruction. Here we go. Fixing devices are installed in accordance with manufacturer's instructions. That's, student could read the manufacturer's instructions. You would hope that the TAFE would be able to tell the students, the manufacturers, or show the students the manufacturer's instruction, lead them to those documents. That's in CD 20. The old E105, instructions. Manufacturer's instructions, occupational health and safety policies and procedures and instructions. So that the word instructions does not feature much at all in either document, 3 times in either document, but no instruction, just to look up an instruction, not to actually instruct. All right, so the word practice. Let's look at the word practice. The word practice. Practice in E105. Licensing, let's move down. That's in the title. Evidence shall show that knowledge has been acquired for safe working practices. The knowledge and skills shall be contextualised, allowing the teacher to contextualise the knowledge and skills for the cross-discipline units within the particular field. So, for example, this unit can be found in electronics, can be found in instrumentation, can be found in electrical, can be found in electrical fitting, can be found in refrigeration. So it will be contextualised to suit that particular application, trade application. And in many instances, this particular unit is going to be the same. Now, so that's contextualised. The teacher has a proclivity to be able to do that. Knowledge has been acquired. In the other document, let's type in the word practice. And I won't type the whole word. I've got 5, just to be fair. No, that's a title. Sustainable as another title. Codes of practice is a title. A title. Using sustainable energy practices. That's an instruction of how you would assess rather than imparting or allowing the student to practice. All right. So one would think that the institute would allow the acquisition of practice. Just while we're at it, I'll type in acquired. I have only one instance of it. Go to, it's acquired. Try this one here. No, there is no instance of the word acquire for the purposes of acquisition of knowledge, acquisition of a skills, practice of a skill. The new unit has no allowances for the practices or the acquisition of skills. This is purely about assessment. Whereas there's an implication that the acquisition of knowledge is, if not in the workplace, would be at the RTO. But it's completely written out. It doesn't prohibit it, but it's written out. All right, so let's try some other words. We've done knowledge, we've done instruction, practice. Now we're going to do structure. Let's type in the word structure. And let's keep it simple for the moment. There are 4 instances of structure in a title. No. In a subtopic, but it's part of concrete structures, not, again, structured knowledge or something like that. Structured environment. And I've got all 4. So in E105, no instances of the word structured. If we go into CD20, which is the one that supersedes E105, let's type in the word structured, struck, We have 4 instances of it again. Instruction this time, instructions, instructions, and here we go, structures, but again a title. Nothing about structured learning. Okay, let's do the word training. The word training. E105 first, training. And there are 7 instances of training, but again it's referenced there to training package, training package, training package for optimization of training. So in E104, the RTO, the trainer, the teacher had an opportunity to optimize training, and assessment, effort, competency development issue may be arranged concurrently. Interesting, this word optimization of training. There are 7 instances. That was the last instance to really, during training. Ooh, competency development activities. So during the training, there are to be competency development activities. Let's take that whole phrase, competency development activities, and put them in here. Oh, nothing. Let's get rid of the word competency. No development activities. Let's get rid of the word development. No, there's no activities. There's no development. What about just the word competency? Yes, the word competency does appear of this unit of competency. And there's 6 competencies, competency field, cross-discipline. This unit of competency, this unit of competency, this unit of competency, unit of competency, I think. Right, so let's have a look at it again. Competency development. Let's just look at the word development by itself. Do students have the opportunity to develop, maintain and develop work functions? Hang on, this is all right, this is looking good. So this is in the CD20. What are we saying here? Fixing and securing electrotechnology equipment must include installation, maintenance or development work function. So in any case, there's only one instance of it. If I go back here, there's one instance of competency development activities, and how many developments? There's 4 instances of development, longitudinal competency development approaches to assessment. So there is a competency development approach. So there is a profiling, historical data, interpreted over time, best utilised apprentice program and reduces assessment intervention. One has to, assessment interventions. That's an interesting word. An assessment intervention. I'm going to write that down right along. For optimisation of training and assessment, we have this optimisation available to teachers for training and assessment effort. Competency development in this unit may be arranged concurrently with units covering other installation competencies. So there can be a competency development. That sounds like structured progressive competency development of training. Now that's in the old unit, but it's not in the new unit, except for this fixing, securing electrode technology must include installation, maintenance or development of work functions. That may have been accidentally left in the document. Okay, let's try another word. Training. I think we started with training, didn't we? There, training, yep. Yes, we did. And that's how we found training there. Application contracts of training, no, we're not right. Provisions of the NQC training policy package. Assessment guidelines for this training package. Not talking about information throughput in the idea of training. Guidelines of this training package. Again, we're not training for optimisation. Yes, here we go. For optimisation of training. So again, we can train in the old unit. Training. Training package. Training organisation. Registered training organisation. Electro training package. Electro technology training package. No, There's nothing about imparting knowledge as a training process in the new one. There's a tiny provision for training in E105 and virtually nothing about training in CD20, which is the superseded not. So now what about if we just drop the ing and make it train? So we're now to train. I don't think that gave us any more words. And I dare say that if that's the case in E105, it will indeed be no different in CD20, and it isn't. Right, okay, so let's try another word. Education. Sorry. No. And there'll definitely be no education. No education. No education. Right, okay, let's go back to E105. LERN. Ooh. There's 3 learning. Let's try learning. There's only two learnings. So in E105 it says these should be used in the formal learning assessment environment. So again I say that whereas the workplace may only offer a part of the unit, it would be not unreasonable to expect that the RTO would actually teach in a formal learning process. These should be used in a formal learning assessment environment. That sounds like the word TAFE. Okay, now if I get intended for learning assessment, so just go down to 9.4 here, this requires that the specified essential knowledge and associated skills are assessed in a structured environment, which is primarily intended for learning/assessment and incorporates all necessary equipment and facilities for the learner to develop and demonstrate the essential knowledge and skills described in this unit. Okay, so that sounds like the TAFE to me. Now, while we're at it, I might just put in the word workplace, because a structured working environment is just an infrastructured environment. We can't even grace them with the word RTO. All right. We wouldn't want that now, would we? Okay, so we now go to the next one. Learning. This is the one that's... the word learning doesn't appear, but not only that, the word learn doesn't appear. No learning to be done in CD20. So the word learning's not there. Workplace. E105, the older one, in the workplace. The application of the skills and knowledge described in this unit require licensed practice in the workplace. Practice in the workplace. Practicing in the workplace. That's a title. It is recognised that in some circumstances, assessment in part or full can occur outside the workplace. However, it must be in accordance with industry and regulation policies. That's E105, the old one. These are just titles. Assessment. Where simulation, let's go back further. 9.3, the unit should be assessed as it relates to normal work practices using procedures, information and resources typical of a workplace. So the unit should be assessed as it relates to normal workplace practice. And then it says this should include, it goes on, where simulation is considered a suitable strategy for assessment, conditions for assessment must be authentic and as far as possible reproduce and replicate the workplace and be considered consistent with approach industry simulation policy. Okay, so nothing to say that it should be in the workplace. A simulated work, again, couldn't be bothered to say registered training organisation, but a simulated, replicate the workplace. So really what we're expecting here is that students would go to, in fact, the acquisition of many tools and equipment and plant has been provided by the TAFEs for this very purpose. One would think that you would like to utilise that equipment and those tools. One would think. But if we go now to CD20, we see there's 16 options here. Title, 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 Just performance evidence, title. Assessment must occur in workplace. This is the priority. This is the hierarchy. Now we must have it in the workplace. The hierarchy is that it will first appear in the workplace. Where it is inappropriate to do so, where it is not appropriate, assessments must occur in a simulated workplace operational situation that replaces workplace conditions. So here we see that it would occur typical of a workplace. To replicate the workplace, that's the TAFE. Or if not the TAFE, another location. Here though, the priority is that first of all, it will be done in the workplace, and in order, it can be done at TAFE. But it doesn't say it has to be done. In E105, there is scope for training. There is scope for practicing skills. We saw those trigger words. All of those words have been removed. The word learn, learning, educate, education, training, train, have been removed entirely from the document. Knowledge that can be acquired in E105 is no longer at all found in CD20. The language is such that assessment only is to be the practice of the organisation that undertakes the task of apprenticeships. In other words, the RTO is no longer an educational facility. It is, according to the language of this document, an assessment facility. And by extension, all the evidence collection and the data and all of the work that's associated with that has to be undertaken by those who conduct the assessment, which may have in previous times been teachers, but who are no longer teachers.